Welcome back, everyone, to the Orange County Convention Center, where we are at Coverings 2021, and we are in the Coverings Lounge, working with the NTCA Artisans and Tile Group, and we are live with Joshua Nordstrom and Lee Callewaert, and their amazing behind-the-scenes team coming to us live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we've been watching Joshua and Lee work since our last session with them, where we saw how to select the right tool to cut the right material for this amazing artwork that they're putting together for Coverings right here in Orlando, Florida, right here, right now. And this is our last session for today, but come back tomorrow, check our signboard for our session times. We will have 3 more sessions tomorrow where we will meet with Lee and Joshua, and we will see this mosaic, this piece of finely crafted art come together right before our very eyes. Our final session will be on Friday, so we have 4 more chances, plus the 5th one right now, right here, to learn from Lee and Joshua and watch them. And let's go live now to Milwaukee. Lee and Joshua, we have a live studio audience right here at the Orange County Convention Center, and I hope that you are ready to go. Hi, Joshua.
How's it going, guys? Nice to be back. Wish we were there. We are face taping. We've talked a lot about mosaic tape. This is the mosaic tape. We've got another roll right here. It's a 12-inch roll of, it's a thicker tape than like masking tape. It doesn't really stretch like Carpet Shield would stretch. Carpet Shield's pretty thin. Carpet Shield's nice. It's 2 feet. It's just thinner. This stuff is made for mosaic. Carpet Shield's made for carpet. Before I stumbled on this, it was always Carpet Shield. So either one will work. But this is the mosaic tape that we speak so much about.
Joshua, where do you get that? How do you come across that stuff?
I got this stuff online. I get it from a company called EMI Specialty Papers. I know that there's other sources. I know Angie gets hers from a place in Maryland, Maryland Mosaics, I think. So, it's just a matter of Googling mosaic tape. They sell 6-inch rolls and they sell 12-inch rolls. You buy quantity, the price comes down. I think like now one roll of this is like $70. You buy quantity, it gets down in the $40 range. One trick with this is that they just took it off, but a nice thing, like what I like to do is I put a straight edge on one side. So then that allows you to be able to pull out a section, and you don't want to like pull out a huge section like this, because then it's going to be hard to put it down and to iron it out and not have wrinkles.
Okay, so, Joshua, I want to pause you there for just a second. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have some new members of our audience, and I want all of you in Milwaukee to know that our audience includes some manufacturers, some manufacturing members, some tool manufacturers. We've got contractors from all over here, designers, and we're listening to you. But I also want to point out for people that are in our audience that don't yet know you, we have Joshua Nordstrom, we have Lee Callewaert, we have Maria Meyer. Maria is waving at us. Lee is back there, and Seth Reddy, all the way from Colorado. So we're representing Wisconsin, Colorado, and Alaska, everyone. All right, go ahead, Joshua.
Well, I just want to say before we move on, what we're doing here is we're going to face tape one of Maria's projects. We would have shown you face taping on the Coverings project. However, the mosaic tape, once again, we have this material that nothing sticks to. I've said that on every session, and so is Joshua. So we're using this piece for demonstration purposes to show you the process of face taping.
Got it.
So obviously the key is to iron it out as you go. You don't want wrinkles, and you get one shot. As soon as it's going to touch your tile there, be careful. As soon as this tape touches your tile, it's sticking. You try to pull it up, your tiles are going to move. These tiles are laying exactly where she wants them right now. She's put her grout lines exactly where she wants them. Looks like she's shooting for about a 16-inch grout line throughout. So you can see with the 2 of them, they're dropping that so it's like saddled, right? So it's U-shaped, and they're gonna center that on the piece and just touch the middle, and then they're gonna iron it out both ways.
Drum roll, please.
Nice and slow.
There it is. No wrinkles. And then the key is to just tap it. You just kind of want to touch every tile. And then you move on to the next one. And then what I like to do is I like to get the whole thing taped, and then I'll just go massage everything in.
And make sure you, when you do this, you have I always call it a salmon board, call it what you will, a board under this for transfer. Yes, you could pick this up with just the mosaic tape, and at some point you have to. But it's nice if you only do that one time, and that's in the mounting process.
Yeah, the least you handle it, the better.
Especially
Joshua,
with all these multiple pieces.
I have a question. I understand the board to transfer it to. What if you have tiles of different thicknesses? Are all of the tiles on this piece the same thickness?
No, they're a little different. That you can get the face taping just sticks them all together and holds them in place. When it comes time for the pre-mount, then you can get that's where you can float the mud a little bit and get them to pretty much all be the same height. With this method, this sticking the tape, like I said, it's holding everything together. Once everything's held together, then this can just be picked up in one big piece. And theoretically, you can mud your hydroband sheet membrane that we're using for our piece, and then you back butter this, and you can just stick this as a whole. And then we'll show you when we're pre-mounting our pieces. We've got a big piece of stone that you use a board or a stone. We're using a stone in this case because Lee had it on hand, and it's long enough to go over what we're pre-mounting. But we're going to use that to apply even pressure, and that should flatten everything out.
Okay, thank you. Is this, and you might tell us this later, is this tape easy to get off of the tile?
This tape, yeah. Well, like I said, it's made for mosaics, so it doesn't really leave a residue. I'm sure if you left it on your dash in the sunshine, you might have a harder time getting it off, but this stuff doesn't leave a residue. You could see that there is Tyvek tape on there. That will probably leave a little bit of a residue. We were sampling with that. The Tyvek tape is on that blue porcelain that we keep saying nothing will stick to. That's the stickiest thing that we had on hand that we found works. We did a sample piece. You always do a sample piece just to make sure. We pulled the tape off our sample piece. There was a little bit of residue, but you could just rub it off like rubber cement on your hand, and it's no big deal. So yeah, that's something you want to think about. One thing, you want to pass me that roll of tape there, Lee? This here is not mosaic tape. This is packing tape. Packing tape will leave, if you leave it on for any long period of time, will leave a residue, especially like a real polished, shiny surface, because it's going to be really hard to get off. So I wouldn't recommend using this. I know it's clear and it's easy to get a hold of, but I would choose a roll of 2-inch blue tape or 1-inch over this stuff any day. I've used this a bunch too, just do layers and layers of it, and that holds it into place just long enough to do your mounting.
What they're doing as well here is there's all these very tiny pieces. So don't assume that they've made contact with your mosaic tape. You have to get in there and compress so that when you pick this up, I don't know how I know this, but when you pick this up, all the littlest pieces don't just fall out.
Yeah.
So really take a little time. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. Just kind of gently in a circular motion, compress. Make sure you're hitting all the pieces because there are different thicknesses, even in some of the same materials that she has here in the this red
This
onyx.
isn't a race.
Exactly.
No, nothing about what we do is a race.
Take your time.
This, you can see there's air bubbles here and there. And if you can't push that air bubble out to a grout line to let the air bubble, escape, and then just take your knife and just, pop it, and then you can push the air out. You want those air bubbles out because when you go to pre-mount it and you lay something flat over it to flatten it, you don't want the air bubbles in there. I
want to remind our local audience here in Orlando that you are welcome. If you have a question or a comment for the artisans, we can hand you the microphone and you can speak with them directly. So just let me know if you want to speak to the artisans. You are certainly welcome to. We'd love to have you talk to them.
One thing I'd like to add with face taping, when we pre-mount these, the face tape is going to trap the moisture between the membrane and the face tape. So it slows the bond of the thin set down. Mm-hmm. So then you can come back the next day and it's bonded enough to where you can peel this off, and you don't want to peel it straight up. You want to peel it back. You can pull it off, and then your thin set that has oozed up through your grout lines is still workable to where you can dig it out. And you want to leave a little bit of thin set smushed between your grout lines, because that's just going to lock everything into place when it dries. But obviously you don't want it to protrude, because then your grout, it's going to show through your grout.
And it's preferable, I would suggest doing it the very next.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The very next day. If you wait 2 days, it's going to be hard. 3 days, you're going to be regretting your decision.
Do you ever have any of the pieces, do they ever get pulled off when you pull the tape? Have you seen that?
Yeah, if that happens, then you just didn't have a proper bond, and then you just got to clean the mud off of your membrane and restick it. But that's not so common. What's more common is what Lee was saying, is when we pick this up, if these aren't, if you don't have contact with the tape and the tile and everything, you're going to pick it up and there's going to be a couple pieces that fall. But that's not a big deal, because then you can just flip it upside down and you can put your pieces back in, push them down, and then you can lift that back. I mean, then it's upside down for the back buttering, and then you can back butter it, and then you can install it on your sheet membrane.
And that's what we're going to be going to next.
Yeah,
is some pre-mounting. This one will be pre-mounted tomorrow. We're going to work on pre-mounting some of the background for the 21 project.
So we mixed some thin set. I'm going to go give it a quick spin because it's slaked, and then we're going. Has it already been spun?
Yeah, I already spun it.
It's already spun. Oh, oof, Maria, you're great. So we've got our thin set that we're using.
I want to just, while Josh was getting the thin set, I want to reiterate for our audience, Joshua talked about using the right thin set, understanding that he's got a membrane on top of that tile layer that's going to hold the moisture, hold the cure from that thin set in, and we have to calculate that, make sure we have to get the right coverage. Just like every tile installation we do, we've got to consider all of these factors. And you know what else he just talked about? Mixing it properly, allowing it to slake, remixing, all of these things. We don't do an installation like this without doing everything correctly. Isn't that right, guys?
That's correct.
Correct.
Too much writing on it.
Well, I mean, and there's too much time writing on it. I mean, why would you go to all this time and trouble to jeopardize the whole thing, right? So
Yeah,
right.
you want to cross your T's and dot your I's the whole way through.
Okay,
Well,
what's coming up here?
I guess it's the type of mortar. There's these new high powered mortars, such as like Multimax Light. The silica in it, if there's silica in it, I still don't quite understand the technology behind it. We used to use platinum, but the silica, even though fine, great bond, would prevent us from compressing that thin set down as flat as it was. Great until Multimax came out. I guess that's the moral of the story. Once that came out, you could compress it so smooth and so evenly that we kind of switched over to exclusively that. We mount on hydroband sheet membrane, great adhesion. The fiber on here ensures that it's very, very thin. So your
Minimum buildup.
minimum buildup. And then when doing this, we'll be using a small V notch, 16th inch V notch as well. So we don't want a lot of buildup here. In most of the cases, we are setting an organic image into our tile background. So if it's a floor and a wall, most cases, you may want it flush, right? Well, that's why it's important that there's not a lot of buildup. You're not using a thick membrane, too much buildup at all, so that you can achieve that. So I think
Lee, are those pieces, other pieces on the table, have they already been mounted? Is that what we're seeing?
No, we're actually going to do that right now.
Oh, okay.
They're taped
I
together.
understand.
They're basic. That's why we showed you with the face taping with the mosaic tape, is that generally we're not going to be using Tyvek for face taping.
No, first time ever.
Right. We just had to come up with an option for this lovely blue porcelain.
I understand. And I also see where you're using, it looks like you're using all products from one manufacturer because they're designed to work together.
Yeah,
Is that
that's right. That's the whole point. You know that they all marry together. They're all formulated to work well together. So why mix? That makes no sense. This is all scientifically formulated to work together. So let's use all one product. Correct. And all these products are fantastic. Were you going to talk about this?
Nope.
Okay.
No. We have pre-cut these, so they're all ready to go. Okay. So we've got a back butter station here, and then over here, we're going to burn our thin set into our membrane, and then we're gonna what do we decide we're gonna use on this? A 1/4 inch trowel?
No, we're gonna use a 16th V.
16th V. Okay, so we're gonna use a 16th V on this, and we're gonna notch this, and we're gonna back butter this, and then this is gonna be stuck to this. So we want to make sure that we butter, or that we put the mud on the right side of this. So I'm gonna make sure that that goes on this table in this direction.
And I think I heard Lee say that we clean the back of the tile to make sure that all of the bond breakers, if there's any dust or anything off the back of that tile, we want those bond breakers out of there.
Mm-hmm. That's all been done.
Okay, thanks.
So once that comes over, it's going to go on. Okay.
Anybody from our audience have questions for what's going on? Anything for the artisans? Okay.
Like Joshua said, you treat it like you're setting tile. It's the same process, right? You want to back scratch, coat,
Butter, whatever you want to call it.
however, the mortar into the fabric.
Burn it.
Yep. Ensure.
So Seth is keying in the backs of the tiles. That's what we're seeing Seth do there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Seth, what we're watching right now is keying in the mortar to the back side of the tile to ensure excellent transfer and bond of the mortar. They're not just troweling it on, they're making sure it's absolutely keyed in. And I don't know if we can hear it, but we're going to listen very closely to see if we can hear the sound of the trowel that Seth's trowel is making. Yeah, I don't know if I can hear it, but you can imagine that sound, right? Joshua can hear it. He's our quality control guy. Is Seth doing a good job? Looks like he is.
Seth has been doing an amazing job, along with the whole team.
Yeah, we're fortunate to be surrounded by some pretty fantastic people.
Yep.
I've been telling everybody about your shop and how great it is and how well organized you are and wonderful to work with. It's awesome to watch you from this distance. What are you doing now? What's going on there?
Now we want to make sure we get nice, consistent trowel, just like any other good tile job. Want to make sure you have even full coverage.
You want your lines all go in the same direction. We've got, like I mentioned, they're subway tiles that we fabricated, so they're long. They run lengthwise this way. So we're combing this way to get the air to travel, to leave between the tile and the membrane, you know, the least amount of space possible, right? So there's less space for the air to go this way than this way with the tile.
The shortest distance for the air to travel.
That's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
We're all in this together.
So, yeah. Which?
You gonna run yours that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which one
Works both ways.
goes this way?
I got
Or this one?
I got crossways.
Okay. We need more mud in there.
And I just want to remind our studio audience that all of those tiles,
Don't be afraid to squeak a little
that
in
field
there.
tile there was cut out of a full panel of gauged porcelain tile. And I'm going to hold up for you. I've got a piece of it right here. That was a roughly 4 foot by 9
that
foot
big
panel
white
of
one?
this tile that was
White one.
milled into those shapes. That particular panel was sent to Milwaukee from Miami.
Bring your back
They
trowel
have
over?
that panel there. They
The
milled
back
it into
trowel?
all of these shapes. The artisans selected the colors they wanted out of this panel, and their
No, I
staff
would just let
cut
you
those
be-
colors out
This one
and
right-
produced these tiles that they're actually finally. This was done back in April that they're able to put together now. So this is quite a process to
This
build
one
this
is the next one in line.
original artwork.
And usually we use where's that Mosaic board? Did you see it, Maria?
So I want to point out these little tiny pieces here. When we back butter, we like to put a little bit more mud on those because when you set them, they always sink, right? So you put a little bit more mud on them, which in turn is going to squeeze more mud out around them. But that's better than them, you know, and then they'll lay flat, and that's better than them being sunk in and then having to go in and after the fact cut them out and lift them and put mud under them again. So I always put a little bit of extra mud on these little small guys just to prevent that from happening. And here again, when you're back buttering this, you know, you want to get an even coat of back butter, and you don't want to put too much in between the grout lines. But like I said, it doesn't hurt to get a little in there because that's just going to lock everything in. That looks good. So I'm going to lift this thing up. Just like so. Fold. Can you flip that little guy, that little tiny one back? No, the other. I want that one both back. There you go. Let me get. Okay. And I can flip this over.
So normally we're not mounting panels this linear, this long. So a board like this to compress after you've applied your tile to the fabric works great because you can get a lot of down pressure on it. But because of the shape of these, we have a piece of slab that is going to make that process real simple and real uniform. So we should just take it around there.
Yep.
Lee, did you buy or build that board you showed us?
I built it. I took a handle off of a trowel, treated the plywood so it would never warp.
Oh shit! Shoot.
Did I mention we have manufacturers in our audience?
Yeah, it was.
It was slippery. It was wet.
I think it was a.
So you're using this slab because it has weight or because it's flat? Why are you using this?
It's applying even pressure and it's flat, right?
So a little bit of both.
Start here,
A
so
little bit of both.
Or a lot
And then
of
it's
it of
on a
both.
flat, you know, we put a level on our
Going forward.
On our, this is our canvas for our mosaic, and we we built it flat, but you want to make sure it's a flat surface, then you don't have this, right? So it's got to be flat for these really, for anything, but especially for these long pieces.
You know, one of the things I see as you're working is I see your workbench height. Looks like it's designed to be just the right height for ergonomic, and you'd be able to work right comfortably and get the right amount of pressure for what you're doing there. Is that how that's designed?
Yeah, it's great. Like Lee said, it's good for the back. In my studio at home, I took my saw stand off my saw and I built it so my table's right here. So when I'm cutting right at eye level. There's none of this because I'm in there for hours and hours at a time. So whatever you can do to make it more comfortable.
So to be clear, I know I've seen pictures of this, but you've raised your wet saw up to a higher, comfortable working height, and you can see a lot better then too, right?
Yeah, I'm looking straight at the blade, and I wear a headlamp, so then that allows me. I've got 2 halogen lights on each side of my saw, shining right at my blade, and then I've got my headlamp, and then wherever I look directs the light. So it's good for the eyes. It's
for
good
you,
for
it's
the back.
pretty close.
Yeah. Well, when I came in July or in April,
I mean,
we put blocks underneath the lease saw just to get it up a little higher.
Makes a lot of sense to me. And light is everything. Good lighting matters.
Yeah, that weight, I think, and just a little bit of vibration like that always helps tile to get a good bond.
So we have Maria and Seth are still back buttering or keying in the backs of the tiles there. And so you've got a production line going on. Is this all of the field tile for the art project or just part of it? Or
This is just the water. We've got everything else mounted already. This project is too labor intensive for us to do it all in these short segments that we've got. So we had to get ahead of the game. And that's why we have, yep, it just fits. So that's why we've already got everything else pre-mounted. But we left this for the last to explain to you guys the process of it.
Is this for this one?
Well, what are Maria and Seth using there? What kind of tool is that?
Don't slide it. I slid it all the way over. But yeah, you can clean up.
They're using a putty knife.
Okay.
And once you have these on here, it's really it's a good idea. Go ahead and clean the perimeter. Get all of the excess mortar
This is the next one.
out now. Obviously, it's fresh and easy to clean. However, do not cut the excess membrane off until it has cured. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to be putting pressure on these pieces, undue pressure, cutting the fabric. There's more pressure to cut the fabric than there is to gently clean out those areas of thin set. And we use paint brushes, we use various tools to gently clean thin set out of these grooves. So we're not in there tomorrow just grinding away, trying to get it out.
Okay, I want to make sure I understand you correctly. You said we're seeing Maria clean off the excess mortar that came out from beside the tile, and she's doing that because you don't want her to cut off the membrane, because the membrane will support the panel and especially those small pieces. When will you cut this off then? At what point?
Probably in our case, probably tomorrow, because we are installing tomorrow. So it's nice to follow this process. It's nice if you don't have to store things, and you pre-mount and mount the next day. It's just so much easier. So in our case, it's going to flow pretty fluidly.
So this is efficiency for your workspace. You've got your timing down, your pre-mounting, and then you'll be mounting. It's all sequenced for, so you don't need acres and acres and acres of a workshop. Is that right?
Right.
Correct.
And you're not going back. Things are relatively fresh with this method, like we just spoke of before. So any tweaking or cleaning is done at the right time in the process, not a week later. So like I said, continuing the process is very efficient.
Are we going to see you pull the face tape off of these pieces tomorrow?
That will be tomorrow after they are cured. Tomorrow there's going to be a lot of process to be shown, because it's all, as you know, so much leads up until that day. And when it all comes together, you wonder, well, that's easy. You think, well, that's easy. That big deal. Just put it together. Well, you forget about the months it took you to get to that point.
We've got to take the face tape off tomorrow so we can clean the grout lines, right?
100%.
And then we like to go back and re-tape them, because it does two things. It protects the tile and it keeps it stiffer. If you got a layer of tape on one side and the membrane on the back side, it's, these are going to be like tile panels tomorrow when they dry with the tape on them. They'll be real rigid. If you're too rough with them, you'll get a fold in one of the grout lines, which isn't the end of the world. But yeah, so we got to take the tape off, clean the lines, and then we'll re-tape it.
I'm curious, what is the temperature there inside your shop? Is it normal? Are you sweating? Is it nice and cool?
Perfect.
It's perfect. Yesterday we were sweating.
Okay.
Just
all right.
perfect.
I mean, that matters.
You want it controlled. It's it's important for a lot of these things as well. I'm glad you brought that up. For the curing process, you want them to be under controlled conditions so that you do get the proper bond and things aren't setting too quickly, too slowly. It's good for the process in general, for your materials, everything, to have a controlled temperature.
And that's true once again for every tile installation, indoors, outdoors, in Orlando or Milwaukee. We have to consider where we're at and control the environment as best we can.
Yeah, it does make a difference.
We have a large studio audience here, and I want to ask if there are any questions for the artisans. We just have, guys, we have about 12 more minutes left for you to show us everything that you're going to show us in this session. Do we have any questions for the artisan? Yes, we do, from Jesse. Jesse, let me bring you the microphone, or you can come on up here and use the microphone. Guys, here's a question from Jesse.
Hi. I was just wondering, I didn't hear what kind of mortar you were using. You had mentioned something about the silica. You didn't want the silica sand in the mortar because it didn't give you a good bond between the tile and the hydroband.
You get a good bond. I think the reason that we prefer the Multimax Light to the Platinum is that the silica does prevent you from compressing it as tight. In other words, you can compress it much tighter, the Multimax Light, than you can the Platinum. The bond strength, it's somewhat comparable. And for what we're doing, either one is acceptable. They're both great for this. It's just that the Multimax Light just became the preference because of how much it compresses, how smoothly it compresses without having that heavier silica in it.
That's an excellent question, Jesse, and I think Lee, maybe I can describe it this way. You're seeing those little grains of sand as aggregate that are holding your membrane away from the back of your material, and this a smoother type of mortar like this is just easier to work with, right?
Exactly, and you're not losing any bond strength whatsoever. I've used both of these products, and like I said, they're rated for different areas and things, but as far as bond strength, they're comparable.
Does that answer your question, Jesse? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks, guys. Any other questions for the artisans as they're working on this?
We're getting close to wrapping this.
Hold on. What are you doing there with that sponge? What's going on with that? What's the purpose of that?
Well, what's the one?
You understand? You got the mic.
You could go ahead. Here, they can hear you from here.
I'm just hitting the sides of the tile. There's nothing protecting it from drying, so it's gonna take on.
So you're doing some fine-tuning cleanup there, Maria, on the edge. So that's less work that you have to do tomorrow then on that outer edge.
Yeah. And if you take a blade to it tomorrow and you're trying to scrape a border on, you also risk chipping the tile. So it's easier to do it the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And
exactly.
That's a terrific point, Maria. And I just want to repeat what she said so everybody understands. She doesn't want to take a knife blade to that and risk chipping one of these custom crafted tiles, but because, boy, that's hard to replace. And we teach this even in gauged porcelain tile installation class. Clean up that mortar while it's fresh. Make that grout joint clean, just like they're doing here.
Does that need
it's the right way to go.
That was a long way for you to reach.
Thank you.
And we're going to grab the end of this, please.
I'm guessing that's a reason that they're using plastic tools, they're using paintbrushes, they're using sponges that are very friendly to the tile itself.
Isn't it lean enough?
Exactly. Where is that?
Where's that block that we cut before we decided to use the stone?
Did you say that tomorrow? I'm sorry if I interrupted again. Tomorrow, we're going to pull that face tape off, clean up the grout joints, then reapply that? Is that what you said?
Yes. That just protects your mosaic. And it helps stiffen it for installation. Then you got two layers. You got a layer of tape, and you've got the membrane on the back now that's bonded and hardened. So it just makes it stiffer. And what the tape just kind of holds it. Because sometimes they'll fold on you at a grout line, and the tape will help prevent that from happening when you've got it on the front and then you've got the membrane on the back.
I understand. That makes sense now.
Now, do we want to... I'll try to get this one straight out of the way. The board, or our slab was too long for where we're at right now, so we had to use a board and a rubber mallet. Just have to sometimes make it up as you go.
Can we slide this one? Yep. And then our next one can go right next to it, and then we got that big one to go right here.
You got this?
Okay. So we got that, and we got these two. Thin set. Behind me.
How many panels do you have of this that you're mounting like this, that you're pre-mounting?
6, 7, 8.
And we have
8. And
8 of the water.
5 of them done so far. So I can really understand now, and it makes a lot of sense why you're set up. You've got every step choreographed. You've got your team in place. Very smart move, how you're bringing this all together at the same time. Is this typical when you've got a large work like this, you set up and you go into production mode on a particular part of the process?
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of doing instead of fabricating, face taping, and if you have a series of pieces, fabricate, face tape all your pieces, or as many as you can. We need.
We lost your trowel. You got your trowel over there?
Oh yeah, and so that you're taking out the same tools, mixing up the same materials, mortars, grouts, whatever, what have you.
Yeah, it's best to mix things at once instead of 4 times.
Yeah, just everything. You're just so much more productive.
And I can imagine that you're troweling the same way on every one of these pieces. The final thickness of each panel or mini panel, I'm not sure what you call these pieces, is going to be the same because you don't want lippage from piece to piece to piece when you install them, right?
That's correct. But we talked earlier about we're putting relief into this project. So we've got a couple different heights going on, and this water is actually going to be a different height than the actual alligator. The alligator is all 3/8 tile. This is like 3/16, maybe a quarter once this all dries. And so we're going to have an 1/8 inch difference between the two, but we want the alligator to appear to be out of the water a little bit. So we want the water to be inset a little bit. That's why we're using the membrane versus something thicker like a foam board or something.
So for everyone in our audience, I know some of you have been to our other sessions. They have put a lot of thought into this, and what Joshua just described, this is an alligator coming out of the water. So they've designed this so that the thickness of the actual alligator body tile stands proud of the water that it's coming out of. So it's got a 3-dimensional effect to it. That's a lot of forethought there, guys. You're pretty amazing.
Well, that's one thing about these is that if an opportunity arises, we usually we usually do it. So by doing the relief work, we had to take polishing kit and bevel and round off all of the exterior edges of the image and polish the end so that it was all finished. Most of the time you don't have to do that. Maybe you put a slight bevel on everything so it's a nice, clean, crisp finish for your cut. But you're not going to go through the process of rounding, polishing, doing that unless you're doing relief work. And what that does is it gives you a more realistic visual when you round off those edges on relief work.
So you used the shaper to do that as you were building those edge pieces? That's how you did that?
Well, we did some with the shaper, but most of it was done with a polishing kit and a series of polishing wheels, which I know you have there.
Right.
A series of those. And each material took a different series of grits. Because as you have seen, there's onyx, granite, marble, porcelain, and glass. So they all took a kind of a different method of polishing and shaping. But I think in the end, it's really going to make a difference that we took the time.
I do have those pads here, Lee. I'm holding them up for the audience so that they can see them. It's a 5400, 800, and a 1500. So depending on the density of the material, they selected the right grit and then increased the grit to make sure that there was a nice polished relief. So a lot of work has gone into this.
Make sure we use the proper grinder and Metabo with variable speed, so that we're not heating up the material too much. That can cause material to fracture under excessive heat if you're polishing at a high speed. With glass, it can actually turn it white. So all of these things we do with multiple materials, you really have to treat each one separately as its own thing. And that's that does take extra time.
It
as
takes
opposed
like
to-
Lee, like you've been talking about, and we just have about another 30 seconds maybe to wrap up here. But it takes all of that information that you've been telling us about, your design abilities, your material knowledge, your knowledge of the stone and the tile and the glass, and your vision to bring all of this together, and the tools to make it all work.
Right. So yeah, it's a little more complicated, I guess, than just cutting up some tile and fabricating.
This one's a little bit longer than so if you just want to hang it over.
So, can you tell us
Got
what we're going to see happen tomorrow? Can you tell our audience what we'll see tomorrow?
Wow. That's Mark, I have to look at the you told me what we're going to see, remember?
Well, what we're going to see tomorrow, everyone, I'll remind you what you're doing tomorrow, okay? we're going to see these pieces come together and turn into the actual artwork. They have some of this alligator that's been pre-built, pre-mounted, pre-installed, and the tile that you're seeing today is going to be mounted, and you're going to see this whole thing start to take shape. Check our signboard that's right here behind Chris. Chris is guarding our signboard. It's right behind him. Check for the times tomorrow. You do not want to miss a single session. We have 3 sessions tomorrow, 1 more on Friday, which will be the final reveal. So I would like to do one thing. We just have a few more seconds before we have to wrap up, guys. I want to thank you for everything you've done today. It's been a terrific day. I want to thank all of our live studio audience here at the Orange County Convention Center at Coverings in Orlando. Please come back tomorrow and see us some more, speak with the artisans. And if everybody here in the audience, could you please do me a big favor? And I don't know if they can hear it. Let's give our artisans a round of applause. They're awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are great. We'll be talking, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Get some rest, okay?
All right, take care.
You
Thank
do the same. Thanks.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And before you guys take off, I would like to promote our T-shirts. If you have not heard about this shirt that I'm wearing, they're hanging right here. This was a designed shirt specifically for this event, this show, and it's a very simple order form. Fill this out. You don't need to give me any credit card information. Fill this out, hand it back to me. I'm going to give this to Trisha Moss in Jackson, Mississippi. She'll contact you for your payment information. Every penny of the proceeds goes to support the nonprofit Ceramic Tile Education Foundation to do education and certification for the tile industry. So buy some shirts and please come back and see us tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. You're awesome.